Alera knew the weight of dust. It coated everything on Xylos, her tattered clothes, the dry cracks in her skin, even the air she breathed. Every breath was a gritty reminder of their existence, clinging to the bones of a dead world. Her people, scattered like forgotten seeds across the Crimson Plains, lived by scavenging, by coaxing meager sustenance from the irradiated soil, and by the fading whispers of old tales. The legends spoke of the first builders, beings of impossible power who had once traversed the stars, and of their most magnificent creation, the dragon's claw. It wasn't a claw, not really, but a colossal structure of crystalline material. Half swallowed by the shifting sands, a monument to a forgotten age. The elders warned against approaching it, muttering about strange energies and ill omens, but Alera felt a pull, a quiet hum in her bones that resonated with the ancient stories. It was more than curiosity. It was a deep, unexplainable yearning, a feeling that something important lay hidden within its silent depths. One scorching afternoon, the sun a relentless eye in the ochre sky, Alera found herself further than usual from the cluster of dome huts that was her home. The heat was a heavy cloak, pressing down on her as she scanned the horizon for anything of value, a discarded piece of metal, a rare nutrient-rich plant. She'd been following a faint, shimmering distortion in the air, a mirage that seemed more solid than others. As she drew closer, the distortion resolved into an exposed section of the dragon's claw, revealed by a recent, unusually fierce sandstorm. It was unlike any rock she had ever seen. The surface, even under layers of ancient dust, pulsed with a faint internal light, a soft, almost living glow that seemed to breathe. It wasn't a steady light, but one that subtly intensified and faded, as if something within was slowly awakening. The air around it felt different too, not just hot and dry, but charged, prickling on her skin like a silent static. A strange melody, barely perceptible, seemed to hum in the very air, not a sound for her ears, but for something deeper, something in her very core. Hesitantly, Alera extended a hand, her fingers, calloused and rough from years of endless foraging, trembling slightly. Every fibre of her being screamed caution, but an irresistible force, a primal urge, urged her forward. The elders' warnings echoed in her mind, tales of those who had ventured too close, those who had never returned, or those who had returned changed, their minds lost to the ancient hum. But the light beckoned, an invitation whispered on the wind. She touched it. The moment her skin made contact, a jolt, not of pain, but of pure, concentrated energy, surged through her arm and into her very being. It was like lightning without the sting, a sudden, overwhelming rush that stole her breath. Her vision blurred, then exploded into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and shapes. She saw shimmering cities floating in impossible skies, their architecture defying gravity, built from light itself. She saw machines of intricate beauty, humming with silent power, performing tasks beyond her wildest comprehension. Then, the images coalesced, focusing on a single, ancient face. It was not human yet, possessed an expression of profound wisdom, its luminous eyes filled with an unbearable sadness, a sorrow that seemed to span epochs. And then, a fleeting spark of hope, quick as a dying star, ignited within those ancient eyes. The visions vanished as quickly as they came, leaving Alera disoriented, gasping for air. The dust around her, which had been still moments before, now swirled, no longer chaotic, but forming intricate, glowing symbols in the air, like a language written in pure energy. They shimmered for a moment, then dissolved, leaving no trace. A faint hum vibrated in the air, a residual energy, but the deepest resonance was now within Alera herself, a silent, persistent thrum beneath her skin, a feeling that something profound had shifted within her. Her fingers, still tingling from the contact, felt different, almost alive, with a faint, unfamiliar warmth. She looked back at the dragon's claw. Its light still pulsed, but now it seemed to acknowledge her, almost to welcome her. A sense of awe, tinged with a delicious fear, washed over her. She knew, with an unsettling certainty, that she had stumbled upon something far greater than any ancient relic. She had awakened something that had slumbered for millennia, and in doing so, had unwittingly bound herself to its ancient purpose. The air still hummed, but now it felt like a promise, a whisper of a future irrevocably tied to the fate of the forgotten past, and to the girl who dared to touch the dragon's claw. Alera felt the hum constantly now, a quiet, persistent thrum. Beneath her skin, a vibration that had taken root the moment her fingers grazed the dragon's claw. It wasn't a sound, not truly, but a deep, internal resonance that subtly altered her world. The dust, once a monotonous grey, now shimmered with faint, unseen energies, like tiny, dancing motes of light only she could perceive. The wind, which had always been a harsh, dry whisper, now carried faint echoes of distant, impossible melodies, sounds that seemed to stretch from beyond the horizon, from beyond time itself. She saw patterns in the shifting sands that no one else noticed, intricate designs that mirrored the glowing symbols that had briefly appeared around the claw. Her senses were sharpening, becoming attuned to something ancient and vast, a connection she couldn't explain but deeply felt. This new awareness was both exhilarating and terrifying. She would often pause mid-task, her eyes unfocused, lost in the intricate dance of energies or the faint, ethereal music that only she could hear. The elders, their faces etched with the harsh lines of Xylos' unforgiving sun, noticed the change. They watched Alera with a growing wariness, their whispers following her like shadows. Her once bright eyes now held a distant, knowing glow, especially when she spoke of the claw. Not as a dead relic, but as something alive, something that had spoken to her. They spoke of the Pact, a word whispered with a mixture of reverence and fear, an ancient agreement between their long-lost ancestors and the first builders. It was a promise, they said, of protection and wisdom, a covenant that had faded into the realm of myth, a story told to scare children away from forbidden places. But now, seeing Alera, seeing the strange light in her eyes and the quiet intensity that had replaced her youthful restlessness, they wondered if the myth was stirring. They feared what the awakening of such ancient power might bring, remembering the old warnings of forces too great for mortals to comprehend. Despite their apprehension, Alera couldn't shake the recurring vision of the ancient face. It appeared in her mind's eye during quiet moments, in the shimmering heat haze, or just before sleep. The profound sadness in its luminous eyes was still there, a deep sorrow that resonated with the desolate beauty of Xylos. But now that sadness was tinged with something else, an inexplicable hope, a fragile spark that seemed to reach out to her, a silent plea. It was a hope that felt personal, directed at her as if she held the key to its ancient burden. She felt a growing sense of responsibility, a weight that settled deep in her chest, urging her to understand, to seek answers. The hum within her intensified whenever the vision appeared, a silent affirmation of its reality, a confirmation that she wasn't simply imagining things. Then, one night, the plains themselves seemed to hold their breath. A deep, guttural rumble, unlike any natural tremor, vibrated through the ground, shaking the very foundations of their dome huts. It wasn't the familiar groan of the earth settling, nor the distant roar of a sandstorm. This sound was vast, resonant, and seemed to come from the very fabric of the sky. Fear gripped the settlement. Children cried, and the elders emerged from their shelters, their faces pale, scanning the star-dusted horizon. And then it appeared. From the distant, inky blackness, a massive, luminescent ship descended. It was a silent leviathan of light, its form unlike anything in their current, rudimentary technological understanding. It wasn't sleek like the old star-faring vessels depicted in their crumbling pictographs. It was organic, flowing, made of light and shadow, pulsating with an inner glow that cast long, dancing shadows across the crimson sands. The ship moved with an impossible grace, a silent or inspiring presence in the night sky. It hovered, immense and unmoving, directly above the dragon's claw, its sheer scale dwarfing the ancient structure. A collective gasp rose from the terrified villagers. They huddled together, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and profound awe. This was not a raiding party, not a trade vessel, not anything they had ever encountered or even imagined. This was something else entirely. A single, focused beam of pure, shimmering light extended from the ship's underside. It wasn't a destructive beam, nor a probing searchlight. It was soft, almost gentle, and it didn't descend upon the dragon's claw. Instead, with an unnerving precision, it extended directly towards Alera, enveloping her in its warm, pulsing embrace. A wave of calm washed over her as the light surrounded her, a stark contrast to the terror gripping those around her. It was an echo, she realized, of the very energy she'd felt from the claw, the same profound hum that now resided within her. It was a recognition, a silent greeting across the vastness of time and space. The light lifted her, slowly, gently, from the ground, drawing her upwards towards the waiting maw of the colossal vessel. She looked down at her people, their faces upturned, a mixture of fear, confusion, and a dawning understanding in their eyes. She was not afraid. A strange sense of destiny settled upon her, a quiet acceptance. The ancient face, with its sad, hopeful eyes, flashed in her mind once more, and she knew with absolute certainty that her touch on the dragon's claw had not been an accident. It had been an awakening, and the echo of a promise, millennia old, had finally returned. The gentle, pervasive light that had lifted Alara from the dusty plains now drew her deeper into the colossal vessel, a silent ascent into an unknown realm. It wasn't a rough pull, nor a dizzying rush, but a soft, almost tender embrace that guided her through what felt like a shimmering veil. The air around her shifted, no longer the dry, gritty breath of Xylos, but something pure and cool, almost like breathing liquid light. She felt no fear, only a profound sense of wonder, a quiet awe that stilled her racing heart. The entrance sealed behind her without a sound, leaving her suspended in an ethereal space that defied all her previous understanding of enclosed areas. This was not a ship built of metal and rivets. It was a living, breathing entity humming. With the same ancient energy that now thrummed beneath her own skin, she found herself in a vast, sprawling chamber, its boundaries seemingly limitless, fading into a soft, luminous haze. The walls, if they were walls at all, pulsed with a gentle, internal light, shifting through hues of deep indigo, soft silver, and shimmering gold. There were no sharp angles, no hard surfaces, only flowing lines and curves that seemed to breathe with an unseen rhythm. The air itself hummed, a deep, resonant chord that vibrated through her very bones, a symphony of pure energy. It was the same hum she had felt from the dragon's claw, amplified 1,000-fold, yet it was not overwhelming. Instead, it felt like coming home, a recognition deep within her soul. And then they appeared. Before her, forms began to coalesce from the ambient light, beings of pure, radiant energy. They had no fixed shapes, their forms shifting and flowing. Like liquid starlight, yet in their core, she recognized the distinct, familiar contours of the ancient face she had seen in her vision. Its luminous eyes now regarding her with an intensity that spoke of millennia, they communicated not with words, not with sounds that vibrated the air, but with a symphony of thoughts and emotions, a direct transmission of knowledge and feeling that bypassed her ears and settled directly into her mind. It was overwhelming at first, a torrent of information, yet somehow perfectly clear, perfectly understood. They were the first builders. They conveyed a civilization that had transcended the need for physical forms, evolving into beings of pure consciousness and energy. They showed her their history not as dry facts, but as living experiences, the creation of stars, the shaping of galaxies, the quiet observation of nascent life across countless worlds. Their existence was one of profound wisdom, boundless creation, and a deep, abiding connection to the very fabric of the cosmos. Then came the revelation of the Pact. It was not a simple agreement, but a desperate, profound covenant forged during a time of unimaginable galactic cataclysm, a cosmic blight that threatened to extinguish all life, all consciousness. The builders, facing their own dissolution, had sought a refuge for their last collective consciousness, a place where their essence could slumber until the danger passed. Humanity, then a nascent species on a vibrant, green earth, had offered that refuge. They were young, primitive by galactic standards, but they possessed a unique resilience, a boundless capacity for adaptation, and a nascent empathy that the builders, in their wisdom, recognized as profoundly valuable. In exchange for humanity's guardianship of their essence, stored within the crystalline structure now known as the Dragon's Claw, the builders had promised their wisdom and protection when the time was right, when the ancient threat returned, and now the cataclysm was returning. Not a sudden, violent explosion, but a creeping shadow, a slow, inexorable decay that spread across the stars, dimming suns and silencing once vibrant worlds. The builders had awakened, their slumber broken by the deepening shadow, not to conquer or to dominate, but to guide. They showed Alara projections, not of their own making, but of the galaxy as it was now, distant worlds teetering on the brink of collapse, civilizations consumed by internal strife, or simply fading into oblivion as the cosmic blight advanced. They explained that humanity, despite its struggles, its internal conflicts, its often chaotic history, possessed a unique spark, a profound capacity for adaptation, for empathy, for collective ingenuity, and for a deep, intuitive understanding of connection. While other species, in their pursuit of individual advancement or technological superiority, had lost their way, humanity's enduring human touch, their ability to care, to collaborate, to hope even in the face of despair, was the missing piece, the vital element needed to confront the encroaching darkness. The Builder's message was clear. The Pact was not merely a historical relic, a forgotten promise. It was a living, breathing covenant, a beacon of hope for the galaxy. And Alera, by her simple, courageous touch on the dragon's claw, had become its unexpected conduit, the bridge between ancient wisdom and a struggling present. She was not a chosen warrior, nor a queen, but a scavenger girl from a forgotten world, now burdened with the knowledge of a galactic threat and the profound responsibility of an ancient promise, a promise that now rested, quite literally, within her very being. The hum within her intensified, no longer just a resonance, but a silent affirmation of her new purpose, a purpose that would change not only her fate, but the fate of countless stars. The return to Xylos was not a quiet one. The luminous ship, now a familiar but still awe-inspiring presence in the sky, gently lowered Alera back to the crimson sands, the same soft beam of light depositing her precisely where it had found her. Her people, who had watched her ascent with a mixture of terror and bewildered hope, now rushed forward, their faces a canvas of questions. They saw not just Alera, the scavenger girl, but something profoundly changed. Her eyes, once shadowed by the harsh realities of Xylos, now held a deep, ancient light, and her posture, once stooped from endless toil, was now straighter, imbued with a quiet authority. The hum within her was no longer just a personal resonance. It felt like a connection to the vast vessel above, a silent bridge between their struggling world and the impossible beings within the ship. The elders, their wisdom rooted in generations of hardship, approached with cautious reverence, their initial fear giving way to a dawning realization that the myths were not just stories. Alera spoke, her voice clear and steady, carrying a weight it had never possessed before. She explained, in simple terms, what she had learned of the first builders, beings of light and consciousness, not conquerors, but guardians, of the ancient pact, a promise of shared survival, and of the looming shadow, the galactic cataclysm, that now threatened all life. The villagers listened, their initial skepticism slowly dissolving under the weight of her conviction and the undeniable presence of the colossal ship above. The builders, through Alera, began to reveal their technology. It was not the destructive power they had feared, no weapons of war or tools of subjugation. Instead, they demonstrated tools of creation and healing, technologies that spoke of harmony with nature, not dominance over it. They showed how to purify the contaminated water sources that had plagued Xylos for generations, transforming stagnant, toxic pools into clear, life-giving springs. They accelerated biological growth, causing barren patches of land to sprout with nutrient-rich plants, their leaves unfurling in vibrant greens against the crimson soil. It was a slow, deliberate process, a gentle reawakening of the planet itself. The builders, in their silent, thought-based communication with Alera, emphasized a crucial point. Their technology was a catalyst, but the true power lay within humanity itself. They showed her how humanity's inherent resourcefulness, born from centuries of survival against impossible odds, was a unique strength. The way her people adapted, innovated with scraps, and found solutions where others saw only despair, was a testament to their resilience. They highlighted humanity's collaborative spirit, the way they instinctively came together in times of crisis, sharing meager resources, protecting one another, while other species across the galaxy, shown to Alera through the Builder's silent projections, often focused on individual advancement, on building empires or hoarding knowledge. Humanity's enduring capacity for connection, their human touch, their empathy, their willingness to help a neighbor, their shared laughter and tears was the vital missing piece. It was this spark, this unique blend of resilience and compassion, that made them invaluable to the galaxy's survival, a quality the builders, in their ancient wisdom, had foreseen and safeguarded. The integration of ancient wisdom and modern ingenuity began. The builders did not simply provide solutions. They taught, guiding human engineers and botanists to understand the underlying principles of their technology. They showed them how to harness the planet's latent energies, how to cultivate new life forms that thrived in Xylos' harsh environment, how to build structures that worked in harmony with the natural world. The once dusty plains of Xylos began to green, small oases expanding into vibrant, fertile zones. The scattered settlements, once isolated by vast, dangerous distances, started to unify, not under a single, imposing banner, but through a shared purpose, a common goal ignited by the builder's presence and Elara's unwavering guidance. Communication became easier, trade routes safer, and a sense of collective identity began to form, replacing the old rivalries and fears. Yet, a subtle tension remained, a quiet undercurrent of suspense. The cataclysm, though unseen, was still out there, a growing shadow that the builders constantly monitored. Elara felt its approach through the intensifying hum within her, a faint, chilling vibration that sometimes accompanied the builders' projections of distant, dying stars. The transformation of Xylos was a miracle, a testament to the Pact's power, but it was also a race against time. The builders were preparing humanity, not for war, but for leadership, for the daunting task of becoming guardians of a new, interconnected future. The weight of this responsibility pressed on Elara, a silent burden she carried with grace. She saw the hope in her people's eyes, the renewed purpose, and knew that their unique spark, their human touch, was indeed the galaxy's last, best hope. But the path ahead was fraught with unknowns, and the true test of humanity's spirit and the ancient pact was yet to come. The whispers of the old world had become a roaring call to action, and Xylos, once a forgotten dust bowl, was now poised to become the unlikely crucible of the galaxy's future. The transformation of Xylos was no longer a secret confined to its crimson plains. As the verdant oases expanded, vibrant with newly cultivated life, and the once scattered settlements began to coalesce into thriving, interconnected communities, the news began to ripple outwards. It was carried by the returning star-faring vessels, not the battered ancient ships of old, but sleek, luminous craft, now guided by the unified human builder efforts. These ships, once mere dreams, now traversed the void, their silent passage a testament to the ancient pact made manifest. The stories they carried were almost unbelievable, a forgotten world, once a dust-choked graveyard, now blooming under the guidance of beings of pure light, beings long thought to be only myth. Other species, long isolated by the vastness of space and their own internal conflicts, received these dispatches with a mixture of disbelief, suspicion, and a dawning fragile hope. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had grown stagnant or were locked in endless, resource-draining wars were astonished by the reports from Xylos. They witnessed humanity, once dismissed as a primitive, fragmented species, rise as an unexpected beacon. It wasn't through military might, no fleets of warships or destructive super weapons, but through the application of profound, ancient wisdom and an unwavering commitment to unity. The builders, through Elara, had not just given humanity technology. They had reignited their spirit, showing them how to harness their inherent strengths. While other empires crumbled under the weight of their own ambition, or withered under the slow creep of the galactic cataclysm, Xylos flourished. Its people, once defined by scarcity, now shared abundance. Its leaders, once consumed by local squabbles, now spoke of a unified purpose. This stark contrast baffled the established powers, forcing them to reconsider their own paths. Elara, no longer just a scavenger, had become a respected ambassador, her presence radiating a quiet power that commanded attention. She traveled to distant systems, her luminous builder companions often hovering silently beside her, their forms shifting like living starlight. Her message was clear, delivered not with threats or demands, but with a profound sincerity that resonated with the deep-seated yearning for peace and stability that many species secretly harbored. The ancient pact, she explained, was not a one-sided deal, but a testament to the enduring power of connection, a blueprint for survival. Humanity, with the builder's guidance, was ready to share its unique spark, its capacity for empathy, its resourcefulness, its ability to find common ground even amidst profound differences. She spoke of the human touch, the simple yet profound act of reaching out, of understanding, of building bridges instead of walls. She showed them projections of Xylos, not just its greening landscapes, but the faces of its people, working together, sharing, laughing, their resilience shining through. Yet, The shadow of the looming galactic cataclysm still stretched across the stars. It was a silent, insidious threat, not an invading army, but a slow cosmic decay that manifested as dying suns, failing planetary ecosystems, and a creeping despair that infected the very essence of life. The builders, through Alera, subtly conveyed the urgency of the situation. While Xylos was thriving, countless other worlds were still suffering, their populations dwindling, their hope fading. The transformation of Xylos was a success, but it was only the first step. The true challenge was to awaken the rest of the galaxy, to convince disparate species, steeped in centuries of mistrust and conflict, to set aside their differences and embrace the principles of the Pact. This was where the suspense truly lay. Could humanity, guided by ancient wisdom, truly unite the galaxy before the cataclysm consumed them all? There were still those who clung to old ways, who saw the builders as a new threat or humanity as naive. Some feared the loss of their own power, others simply could not comprehend a future built on cooperation rather than conquest. The dragons' claw, once a silent monument on a forgotten world, now pulsed with a shared purpose, a nexus for a new galactic alliance. It became a symbol not just of humanity's awakening, but of the galaxy's potential for rebirth. From its depths and through Alera, the builders continued to share their knowledge, adapting it to the unique needs of each species that chose to listen. They taught advanced methods of energy generation, sustainable resource management, and even ways to heal the very fabric of space-time. Where the cataclysm had taken hold, the galaxy, having forgotten its ancient promises, having drifted into isolation and conflict, was now, slowly but surely, remembering the interconnectedness of all life, the strength found in unity, and the profound wisdom of a pact forged in a time of desperation. Alera, the girl who touched a dragon's claw, had not just awakened an ancient promise. She had rekindled a forgotten fate, not just for her people, but for the countless stars that now looked to Xylos and to the human touch as their last, best hope against the encroaching darkness. The path was long, the challenges immense. But for the first time in millennia, the galaxy breathed with a cautious, collective hope.